This video is brought to you by our friends over at 4Runner 6G, the #1 community where you can go online and find out about what folks are doing with their 4Runners, what to expect, what the biggest tire size you can fit without a lift is, and everything in between. A huge thank you to 4Runner 6G for sponsoring this video. Check them out in the link below. Today we have two 2025 Toyota 4Runners, but these cars are both so different.
That's right, we have the TRD Off-Road and the Limited.
And today we're gonna put both of them through the 4-wheel drive torture test, take them out into the pit, get them on the lift, and get them out on the road to find out which one you should buy. Oh, this is embarrassing. It's not going too good yet. So welcome to the TFL slip test, the 4-wheel drive torture test. And what we do is we get various wheels stuck on purpose in these custom-made rollers to see how the 4-wheel drive system and traction control system responds to getting us unstuck. Now this first test is the rear wheel slip test, and this is going to be the most revealing, I think, to show the difference between these two Toyotas. So in the rear wheel slip test, both rear wheels are stuck in the rollers. And we're going to start out in the white TRD Off-Road. Now, this 4Runner uses a part-time 4-wheel drive system, so driving around every day, this vehicle is going to be a rear-wheel drive car. And then when you get stuck, you can engage 4-wheel drive for that added traction, or 4-wheel drive low if you want some additional torque multiplication for slow speed crawling and off-roading. Now, starting in too high, I'm going to show you the issue. So imagine you're driving along and then all of a sudden you hit some snow. Well, in too high, only the rear wheels are getting power. So I can apply some accelerator. Traction control is freaking out. It's like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? There's no traction. This is a zero mu situation in engineering terms. So we're stuck. We're totally stuck. And this would happen in the snow, it would happen in the sand, it would happen in the mud. You're going to get stuck in rear wheel drive. So now what I have to do is flick the selector into 4 high. That's going to engage the front axle, and now, boom, right off. But the important thing is, once you are unstuck, you should go back to 2 high, or you're going to get some driveline binding. It's not good for longevity to drive around on dry pavement in 4 high. It's fine in the snow and maybe in the rain, but not in dry pavement. So what's important with this TRD Off-Road is you spend a lot of time going from 2 high to 4 high, especially in the winter. And in that blue car, things should be a little different. And if you want to learn more about your 6th Gen 4Runner, head over to 4runner6g.com, the #1 off-roading and on-roading 4Runner forum, to find all your stuff you ever want to know about 4Runners. In the last 4Runner, the 4-wheel drive selections are very straightforward. You got 2 high, 4 high, and 4 low. Most people know what those little words mean. But in this limited 4Runner, I have H4F, H4L, and L4L. What in the heck? But let me explain. It's not as complicated as it sounds, because this 4Runner has a full-time 4-wheel drive system, which means it is always in 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. And in H4F, that's high 4 full time. And basically what that means is that the center of the vehicle allows a differential in speed between front and rear drive shafts. In high 4L, those front and rear drive shafts are locked together, locking center diff. And then in low 4L, they're locked together still, but they're locked together in low range. So we're gonna run this 4Runner in high 4F, H4F, high 4 full time, which is how you would drive it every single day. So in theory, when the rear wheels are stuck, we should still be able to get off without changing any modes. So I'm into drive, we're settled, onto the throttle, a little bit of slip, kind of a lot of slip. What? High 4 full time. This is not doing what it is supposed to be doing. So in high 4 full time, sure, I understand the rear wheels are going to spin, but it should be engaging the front wheels automatically. Oh boy. Yeah, it is not doing it. Oh boy. We are finding out some interesting things here. Let me try it one more time. It's a full-time 4-wheel drive. Why is this not working? That's full throttle. Okay, what if I go to high 4 lock? Yeah, that worked, but it should have worked in full time. That's not a very full-time system. What if we get the front wheel stuck in full time? Let's see what happens there. So for this next one, we're trying something we didn't do with the white car, and that is essentially we're gonna try the full-time system but with the front wheels to see what is going on there. It's not wanting to unlock the center. Come on. There it goes. That was the clunk I needed. Okay, so now we're in high 4 full time with the front wheel stuck. Let's see if we get the same result. Yeah, it's definitely a center diff because those front wheels were spinning. Okay, so we did get unstuck from the front wheel slip test. We have proved that it is not, a lot of these full-time four-wheel drives, like in a lot of the GM cars, will be like a slip then grip system where it'll be rear-wheel drive, and then when it senses grip, it'll go front wheels. At least that's how it worked in some of the older GM products. This is a center diff. We proved that by getting the front wheels in the rollers in the full-time system. They were spinning, and then the rear wheels kicked in. But I still don't understand why there was no traction torque transfer to the front with the rear wheels. Like, those brakes should have been grabbing the same power of the front, and they just weren't. But anyways, let's move onwards to the next test. Sup? Sup?
Oh, is that your hair whip?
My hair flick. I don't quite have it down yet. Getting there. All right, now we got the diagonal slip test. So the right rear and the left front are stuck, and the other two are gonna have to engage to get us unstuck. Very, very common in the snow. Imagine you're driving up on like a snowy, icy curb. Also incredibly common off-road, and we'll see this in the trenches test we're gonna do shortly here. So into neutral, we're gonna let the vehicle settle as always, and then into drive. We're going right into 4 high for this test, because this is kind of a challenging situation. You'd really typically be in 4 high when you encounter this off-road or even in some deep snow. So 4 high, normal mode, and then if we need it later on, we can try engaging some of the off-road modes. So into drive, let's see what happens. So yeah, really good result. So I don't know if you can see that on camera, but basically just a little bit of slip, then the brakes engage, transfer torque where it needs to go, and we drive right off. So far we're doing really well. All right, so for the diagonal slip test, we're gonna run this 4Runner in the H4L, high 4 lock. And we're gonna see if we can get unstuck. So H4L engaged. This is essentially the same as 4 high that we found in that white car. So the results should be pretty much the same here. Diagonal slip test in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, okay, so pretty similar. A little bit of slip, torque transferred, we drove right off. No drama there. All right, now for something more extreme, the 3-wheel slip test. So let me explain how this works. Both front wheels are stuck in the rollers. Only one rear wheel stuck in the roller, and the left rear wheel is on the ground. That's the one that's gonna have to start spinning if we're gonna get unstuck. So, gone into 4-wheel drive low. Why? If you're gonna encounter something this severe, you'd really only find it in some very specific off-road terrains, or my slip test. And you typically probably tackle it in 4 low. It also kind of changes the traction programming on these 4Runners when you go into 4 low, makes it more aggressive. So we're gonna start with no lockers on in this TRD Off-Road, and we're just gonna go ahead and try accelerating. Let's see what happens. So the wheels are spinning, brakes are trying to figure out what to do, and they did it actually, yeah. So that's a really good example of how quick and efficient this traction control is on these 4Runners, is that they really are just amazing. But watch what happens when I lock up the rear diff. So it's gonna blink at me a little bit. I might have to give it a little bit of movement. There we go, rear diff is locked. And now with that rear diff locked, both rear wheels are tied in at the same speed. So when I go to accelerate, zero drama, none whatsoever. With that rear diff on, on. With that rear locker on, it's locked both wheels at the same speed. We drove right down. Super, super easy. This is a 3-wheel slip test in the Limited going into 4-low lock. There we go, I got that engaged. Now this is a rear wheel test, no locker available on the Limited, so it's gonna be all down to traction control. So here we go, in 3, 2, 1, off of the brakes, onto the throttle. So you see, like, it did spin, but really no difficulties. It pulled itself out just fine. Okay, for this final test, both rear wheels are stuck, right, left is stuck. Only the right front has traction. Now we're gonna start out in low range, normal mode, rear locker off. It doesn't actually matter because both rear wheels are stuck and there's no front locker option in this 4Runner. Open diff in the front, it's gonna be all traction control to get us unstuck on this one. So we're in neutral, starting out in the normal mode. A little bit of throttle. God, these 4Runner 4-wheel drives are so good. So you could see I just basically gave it a tiny bit of throttle. The traction programming figured out exactly what to do like that and pulled us down. This is why front lockers are a little underrated in 2025. Sorry, overrated. They are still better than traction control, but especially Toyota has such a nailed in crawl control or traction control that it does really well. And speaking of crawl control, I'm gonna try that now. So I'll show you the difference. We're gonna go crawl, and then what speed should we do it at? Let's go crawl control. I'm gonna do the lowest speed. This is gonna be foot off the brake, letting the car figure it out. So that's crawl control at the lowest speed, and kind of a similar result, right? You could just see it figuring it out, pulled us right down. So amazing result with and without crawl control. These 4Runners are great, but let's see how that Limited does on this final test. All right, final test in the Limited. The right front is on the ground. Now I don't have crawl control. I don't even have multi-terrain select in this car. I do have drive modes though. So let's see what drive modes I have. Nothing that will help me here. Okay, so in low range, I can't actually engage any of the drive modes. So we'll see what happens. So low range, front wheel on the ground. In 3, 2, 1, 4-wheel drive low. Okay, so look, little bit of slip, but still the system figured it out. Amazing, actually really, really good. Didn't need crawl control, didn't need a locker, just drove right off. So clearly all of the differences between these two are more on the high range side of things. In low range, they both behave beautifully and they both work very well. This is a 4Runner TRD Off-Road Premium, and Jen, walk us through some of the front end differences between the Off-Road and the Limited.
So one of the main things you're gonna notice is the grille is gonna have a black grille rather than on the Limited, it's gonna be chromed. Now, they both will have these same fog lights here, but on these sides, the TRD Off-Road is going to have these black fender garnishes, which is going to be a little bit nicer when you're off-roading rather than the painted fender garnishes on the Limited.
Yeah, and you'll also notice if we kind of zoom in here in the front, this is kind of an interesting look. Everything is blacked out on this Off-Road, so we've got like this trim piece underneath the license plate, which is all black, whereas on the Limited, it's bougie silver, Jen.
Oh yeah.
Look at that. You also have this little piano black plastic panel here, although I'd worry about this long term.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to get tons of rock chips and it's probably going to get too faded.
And then if you come around to the side, you'll notice what Jen was talking about earlier with the actual painted fender flares. Now Jen, which look do you like more, the black or the painted?
Well, I think the painted looks good, but that's not what you're going to want when you're off-roading.
That's right. And of course the Limited is intended more for kind of the city slicker, right? Someone that wants some luxury and kind of a tough look, but you don't really care about hitting the rocks. Now, one of the biggest differences is the headlight design. So this actually is like this double beam style with this illuminated bottom portion, whereas the Off-Road has these 3 lines with a single beam. Jen, you have preference of the two?
I think the TRD Off-Road looks cooler because it's more of a blacked out design too.
Yeah, I agree. And this one's got like the black emblem, which is an option. So it's a very different look. And then of course wheels. So walk us through the different wheels.
So on the Limited, you're gonna get 20-inch wheels, whereas the TRD Off-Road, you're gonna have smaller 18-inch wheels, which is what you're gonna want when you're off-roading as well, because it gives you more sidewall, more cushion, plus less chances to scratch these up. These are, you know, protruding as a profile, not what you're gonna want when you're off-roading for sure.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. If you look at the side profile, you can actually see the spokes poke out beyond the edge of the sidewall just a little bit. So this is going to be a problem for any kind of rock crawling, but it does give it kind of more of that concept car look. And then it does have body colored mirror caps here along with the body colored door handles. This is one thing I do prefer on this. I think it looks a little bit more finished.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then we got the rail situation. Check this out. So silver rails on this Limited with the crossbars, and then out back, couple of differences here as well, Jen. What are we looking at back here?
So back here you're going to see the silver 4Runner badge back here, whereas on the TRD Off-Road it's going to have that black badge. Plus it's got this lighter finished bumper here, and on the TRD Off-Road it's going to be black, as you would expect. No,
for sure. And you also have different color options, right?
Right.
Depending on the trims. I think as a whole, I agree with you, Jen. I like that Off-Road. It's just a little bit tougher looking. But if I live somewhere like LA or New York, I think this would fit in a little better.
Yeah, absolutely. Just all those painted color match touches.
And then the last thing I want to point out is the running boards. So on the Off-Road, this one's got a set of these fixed running boards to hoist yourself up. Not so much on the Limited.
No, on the Limited, these running boards are automatic and they present themselves to you, which is a really nice option.
That is such an interesting feature, right? And this is another one where, like, good if you're around town, right? Good for kids, just hop on in there, no problems. However, if you are going to be off-roading, that little lack of clearance there is going to be an issue.
Yeah, you're not going to want those extra mechanisms anyways. 6 hours later.
With the TRD Off-Road up on the lift, we can check out some of the engineering. Now, both of these cars are going to be, of course, on the same platform. Both have independent front suspension, both solid axle. This Off-Road has a big, chunky skid plate here, kind of underneath the radiator. This car, by the way, did come with that air dam that Limited has, but we pulled it off immediately because it looks silly. We also have a bit of a skid plate here underneath the engine. It is worth noting, though, that this pretty flimsy. See that? I think right there is actually plastic, so that's a little bit disappointing. Then as we make our way further back, our transmission is going to be virtually unprotected, which is also kind of a vulnerable point. Here is the crossbar across the frame, and then the fuel tank, nicely protected, big steel plate there. And then of course we come to that locking rear diff here, and you can actually see that the TRD Off-Road uses Bilstein shocks, and you know they're better because they're red. Ridiculous. No rock rails on this version. I wish that came standard. And then when we look at the spare tire, it is a full size and it is a matching spare as well, which is great. That's good stuff right there. At the front of the Limited, we have this big air dam, just like we had on that TRD Off-Road. Like I said, we removed it, but we also still have recovery points, which is good. And then we've got this felt stuff. Now, felt should be for suits and not for skid plates. So clearly, this is just a direct air on the front end. You can see that front diff is going to be fully exposed on this Limited. And as we make our way back, you're going to see there, same thing with the engine and of course the transmission. There's going to be that center diff transfer case setup we got going on there, which is pretty cool. And then out back here, boom, look at that. Big steel skid plate. So glad to see even the Limited does have a real skid plate there over the fuel tank. Okay, I spoke too soon. I should have walked a foot this way. It has a skid plate over part of the fuel tank. The back half though, what the heck, Toyota? Just gonna leave that thing dangling out in the open? That's crazy. And then out in the rear here, we are going to find a spare tire, but you're going to notice this is a temporary donut style spare and not a full-size one. And then of course we don't have those Bilstein shocks. So lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of little ways that you can tell the Limited apart from the Off-Road when you're under here. This is fine for cruising around dirt roads, light off-roading, but if you want to start rubbing up on rocks, you're going to need some more protection. So Jen, we're going to go through our trenches course, which are these big divots cut in the ground at angles. Gonna get us up on 2 wheels. We're gonna see how this Off-Road does. and we're gonna do it in 2 modes. So first up, we're gonna try it in 4 high.
Right.
Standard, normal, snow going 4 high. And then we'll try to 4 low, we'll lock it up, we'll show the crawl control, and we'll go full enchilada.
See how much better it does.
That's exactly right. Now, Jen, what's the engine under the hood of these bad boys?
Well, we've got a 4-cylinder, turbocharged 4-cylinder, 278 horsepower, 317 pound-feet of torque.
So we're going on 2 wheels. Just give her some juice, Jen. She'll figure it out. Beautiful. So you can see how that 4-wheel drive system's working, right?
Yeah.
Slowing down the tires. We're picking up some tires.
Come on, come on. There it goes.
There you go.
Through.
Now this does have off-road tires on it, which we're certainly using here.
Oh, yeah.
And this does not have the KDSS that the old 4Runners did, which was like a disconnectable sway bar.
I mean, it came up.
It was working pretty hard,
Struggle
though.
bust a little bit.
So we're going to try it again, and this time we're going to play with some of the toys.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of show the difference there. And this is really why you buy a TRD Off-Road, beyond just some of the blacked out bits and the cool TRD wheels. It's for the rear locker and the crawl control and the off-road modes and multi-terrain select and all that
The actual
stuff.
capability that it provides.
Exactly right. Because if you're not going to be using it off-road, just kind of get an SR5 or a limited even, because it doesn't really, if you're not going to use the features, why pay for the features?
Right, exactly. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, maybe get some slight resale benefit. Good cameras on these, by the way.
Yeah.
Big and clear. So let's go and pop her in 4 low. We'll get that locker on. We'll get the crawl control going. And then neutral. Nice. Cool.
Locker engaged.
It'll click on, yeah. And if you go to drive and then push the crawl button there.
There we go.
Nice. And then just give her a little spin. Put her in like the 2nd speed. Yeah, that's perfect. And if you let off the brake, it'll do it all by itself.
She's crawling.
So this is all the car now. It's taking care of the acceleration and the traction control, and that rear locker is on, and you can see the smoothness difference.
Oh, it's a big difference.
Just walking up it,
Yeah,
right?
so feet are not touching any pedals.
Got your little Irish shimmy going.
A little bit, yeah.
And you can see that, like, this is why you pay for the tech. And it's like, it's a whole different vehicle, right?
Oh, wow, this is, I mean, you can hear everything engaging and working too, and it's going pretty well.
Yeah, for sure. And we're not on anything hard enough to really need the skid plates, but it's nice having that peace of mind.
Yeah.
That, like, look, if you do need them, they're there, and it's cheaper to have them on there than to replace something that broke.
All right, we're up.
We did it.
I'm gonna give it
Go back
some
on
more
the gas.
beans, yeah.
There we go. Nice,
Beautiful.
Jen.
All right.
All right, let's see how
Easy peasy.
the limited compares. Okay, Jan. Jeez. So we are now in the limited version.
Much nicer in here.
Way nicer. I really do mean it when I say I like this little patty thing.
Right, yeah, it makes a difference.
That's comfy, just cruising up like this. So we don't have the same level of capability in here, obviously.
No.
So I'm curious to see if it's gonna make it up the same obstacle.
And as far as skid plates, this doesn't have
Many.
the same body protection that the off-road does.
No. And it also has that ridiculous chin, which, just like the off-road, I would take off immediately.
Yeah.
But because this is a press loaner by Toyota, we're going to leave it on and hope that it doesn't tear itself off.
Yeah, let's see.
So look, for drive modes, I'm going to start out in the 4-wheel drive full-time. We'll see how that compares to the 4 high in the white car. And then there's no like off-road mode. There's just comfort, normal, sport, sport S, and custom.
Right.
So we'll leave it in comfort, I suppose. And let's see what happens. So we're lifting up those tires just like the other one. Full throttle. Man, this full-time 4-wheel drive system is not very good.
No, I'm not impressed right now.
That's everything she's got.
And these tires certainly aren't helping because
No.
they're just regular all seasons.
Traction control turned off.
Oh gosh, we can't even make it past the first dip.
Okay, so that's not working. So let me try 4 high lock, okay?
Okay. Oh, this is embarrassing.
This is not going too good, Jen.
No. Well, that's not great.
Just give it one more go. This is 4 high lock. It really doesn't feel very like it's doing anything. Oh, that's because traction control's off. All right, now
Okay.
it should do something more. There we go.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So 4 high lock, traction on. There we go.
Much better.
Much better.
Well,
yeah. So people think that like traction control is annoying and bad, but in off-roading it really helps a lot. So it's working, but it's working really hard, huh?
it's definitely struggling.
Yeah, and I think you're right. A lot of that is down to just the street rubber.
Yeah, the traction itself, it can't grip.
Doesn't have it.
It has no grit to it.
Okay.
Okay.
So we did it once.
Oh, it's painful.
We're gonna try it one more time. We'll try 4 low, because that was pretty awful.
That was bad.
That was pretty bad.
That was bad.
But it just goes to show, like, this really is the city-oriented version
Right.
of the 4Runner, right?
It's a 4Runner with high heels on.
That I like that.
You know,
That's right.
it looks very pretty, but is it practical for off-roading? Maybe not so
You
much.
also notice the ride is just so much stiffer because of that like limited sidewall.
Right.
Okay, so for this one we'll go into 4 low lock. There we go. And I think this is gonna be much better because what I figured out in these modern Toyota 4-wheel drive systems is like 4 low not only does the torque multiplication thing, but it totally changes the attitude of the traction programming. So watch this, I say as it does the same thing. Please do something different and make me look dumb. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Look at that.
Yeah.
So no crawl control, no special off-road modes here.
No.
Just the standard programming with the brake lock system.
You can hear it all working.
And it does it though.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that. The difference is amazing. So I always say this to people who are buying either the new 6th Gen 4Runner or the new Tacoma. If you're doing any kind of off-roading, just go right to 4 low unless it's high-speed stuff. Now, Jen, this is a TRD Off-Road Premium, which does give us a bunch of kind of features we'll talk about in a sec, but what's the overall feeling you get in the interior of this 4Runner?
Well, black, plastic, rugged, boring. But I mean, it's kind of what you would expect for an off-roader, right?
It's a lot of hard black plastic,
Yeah.
so walk us through some of the interior features on this thing.
So we do have a larger screen for the infotainment. It's a 14-inch that comes with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. 14-speaker JBL sound system. We do have heated and ventilated front seats as well as a heated steering wheel. Lots of goodies, especially with rear locking differential and center locking differential, as well as different crawl control modes, a bunch of different drive modes. But it is very plain and boring and a lot of hard plastic materials in here.
And especially when you consider the price, it's not that nice of an interior. So what's the price on this guy?
This is priced out at a little over $58,000.
Yeah, exactly right. Now you mentioned like the heated steering wheel, heated ventilated seats, that's all good. It is missing one or two things which you might expect at this price point. Like it has single zone automatic climate.
Right.
Not dual zone, right?
Right.
Kind of an interesting thing there. And then these seats, pretty comfortable overall, but this is not actually a leather seat. Toyota calls it Softex, but it's kind of like a premium vinyl.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's still relatively soft to the touch, but you can tell it's not leather.
That's exactly right, and we'll see the difference when we hop into the new one. Now in the back seat of this 4Runner, I've got 2 USB-C ports. Here, let me move some of this stuff so you get a better look at that. So down over here, got dual USB-C ports. I also have a 100-watt power plug there. I don't have heated rear seats, but you do get a JBL premium sound system. And then interestingly, there's no third row at all in this car.
Right.
At least in the TRD Off-Road, but we're gonna experience the third row in that Limited here in a sec. The one thing about both of these cars is they sound pretty bad.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the sound is anything to lust over.
No, it's really unrefined.
No.
Yeah, I mean, they just kind of have this coarseness about them.
Yeah, it's very puttery.
Good word,
It's very
Jen.
puttery, you know.
It putts.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
It has more oomph than the 5th gens, but it's still very clacky, puttery. Yeah.
It doesn't really seem to drive all that different, the TRD Off-Road to the Limited.
No, I mean, the Limited may feel like it's more luxurious because of the materials on the inside, but it's really relatively the same. I don't feel too much of a difference with these bigger all-terrain tires. Maybe, if anything, a little more of a squish factor to it.
Squish factor.
But for the most part, they still drive relatively the same, I would say.
Pretty much identical. Yeah. I mean, I think that this, like you said, with the squish factor, you get a little bit more kind of roll with this 4Runner, right?
Yeah.
But from a like straight up, just everyday city cruising driving, it's pretty much identical.
It's you know, it's an SUV.
So I mean, the question is, and this is kind of obvious, like, do you really want a couple of those additional luxuries, and then, you know, do you get the limited for on-road use, or do you, even if you're going to drive it on-road, you get the off-road trim just because it looks better and it's not that different?
You know, it really depends, because there's a few things that come into play here, right? Capability and price. And those are the big things to me. You know, if you are planning on taking this off the pavement, whether that be, you know, light little camping trails or actually off-roading, then obviously you're going to want more capable something. But if you don't plan on doing that, I don't know, I still think the off-road is still the right choice, because it's more affordable, it's more capable, it still looks awesome. I don't know, it still drives relatively the same. I don't know if $4,500 is worth, you know, leather seats.
So Jen, hopping into the Limited, things are pretty different in here.
Yeah, way more luxurious, not to mention just the color of the interior itself, but a lot more soft press surfaces all over the door panel and on the dash. A lot nicer.
Yeah, and I think my favorite part, which they kind of cheaped out on the off-road, show that little bit on the door there.
Right here?
Ooh.
Yeah, it's so nice, because when you rest your arm up here, you don't want this to be hard plastic, not only because it's harder, but it's going to get really hot in the summer too.
Yeah. Now, there's not that many differences in terms of tech. So same 14-inch screen, right? Right. Same wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. Same kind of heated seat, ventilated seat situation.
Right, but we do have dual climate zones up here now.
Yeah, very cool. This one's also spec'd a little differently. Like, it's got the trailer brake controller, and then it has a black engine start knob instead of a red one.
Not as spicy, I suppose.
And the one thing which I think it needs, considering it's a limited trim at this price point, which we'll talk about in a sec, it still has a small sunroof.
Right, it is relatively small. I could have seen, you know, either a panoramic sunroof or at least one in the back.
So what's the price on this car?
This one is a little over $62,000.
And the price difference?
About $4,500.
Okay, now if you hop into the back seat here, Mary, same kind of brown leather. It really lightens up the whole cabin. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
By sticking with this kind of lighter material. I wish you could get this across the board. Even if it was soft text, it just makes it feel more airy. We don't have heated rear seats in here either, but we do have dual USB-C outlets, and we also have that 100-watt, 400-watt outlet. But then, this is where things get crazy.
There's more.
There's more, Jen. Now I'm gonna fold this down. It pivots like that, okay? And then I'm gonna lift that up, and then I'm gonna fold. Got it, Mary? I'm gonna fold this little guy, and I have just revealed the third row. And here I go.
Oh my goodness.
It's like a taco entering its wrapper at the Taco Bell. There we go. Just like that, and like that, and like that.
How's your leg space back there? Oh, how's your head space? Oh my God.
Yeesh.
Oh, poor Tommy.
This is what I would refer to as a very occasional third row.
I don't think that's meant for anyone your height.
No. Listen. If you're a little guy, this might work. But as a relatively tall, albeit skinny guy, this is pretty bad. Pretty bad. So, yeah, it's cool that it has it. Like, would you use this in an emergency?
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you use this to ferry a kid around all the time?
A kid, yes.
What about an adult?
Absolutely not.
Your strong-armed partner, would he want to be back here?
He wouldn't fit.
That's depressing that I would fit, but he wouldn't. Thanks for that reality check, Jen. All that time at the gym. So Jen, we are now on the road in the limited version.
Fancy.
Yeah, version of the 4Runner.
Very fancy.
Now, 270 horsepower, 317 pound-feet of torque. Actually pretty good power overall.
Oh, yeah, I mean, especially compared to 5th gen.
Yes, especially compared to the 5th gen. You're
My
exactly
goodness.
right. Yeah, this is such a more drivable vehicle. Now, you've spent some time in this. How would you describe like the ride quality in this?
Very comfy. Very, very luxurious. I wouldn't say too direct steering, you know, a little more floaty, but very comfortable overall.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's a It's a pretty smooth and refined ride. It's a little choppier actually than the TRD Off-Road just because it has such thin profile tires, right?
Yes.
But as a whole, it's a very comfortable, livable car, and I really do like these seats. I think they're very, very good.
Yeah, they're very comfortable, and you can tell how much softer this leather is.
Yeah, it is a lot softer. It's got more suppleness to it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and I wish you could get the third row in the TRD Off-Road, right? And a couple of like the dual zone options would be cool in that as well. That would be the perfect car then.
Right. No, I definitely agree.
Yeah, but as a whole, I think it's a pretty effective unit. It's comfortable. The power is good. Tows 6,000 pounds, which is pretty decent.
Yeah, that's no joke. I mean, and plus the trailer brake controller, very nicely placed right there. All of the nice materials on the inside definitely gives it a more luxurious feel to it.
No, for sure. Yeah, it's a great car. I still think it's not as good on road as something like a RAV4. You know, you still feel that body on frame, halter axle kind of heft to it. But you could daily drive this pretty easily.
Oh, yeah. Well, again, definitely way easier than the 5th gen.
Yeah, for sure. What about fuel economy, Jen? What are these things rated at?
So these combined are about 21 miles per gallon. However, since this is 4-wheel drive all the time, it has a little less fuel economy highway compared to the TRD Off-Road.
Okay, so what's the difference on the highway?
So it's 24 highway versus on the TRD Off-Road is 25.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. So you do see a little fuel economy hit for that full-time system.
Just a little bit.
And that's kind of surprising because this is on street tires, right? It should be kind of more aerodynamic and road focused, but you don't see those benefits in economy.
No.
Jen! So between these two, which one are you taking home?
Well, I think just for the price point and the capability, it's going to be the Off-Road.
Yeah, I think you're right. Look, it's a little bit more affordable. It's not quite as luxe, but it still has a lot of the same features, and it just goes so much further. It really embodies the 4Runner soul. The Limited is fine. I think it looks better in some ways. I really like this blue, but for me, get the blue on the Off-Road. And you'll have a much more capable vehicle.
Agreed.
Folks, let me know what you think in the comment section below. This has been Tommy.
And Jen.
We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Big thank you to Marion behind the camera for putting up with our shenanigans. We'll see you next time.